Hey guys, welcome back. This is the 2025 updated list where I compare SafeSport and USAG's banned list and the suspended list all together. In this annual event, I compare improvements and issues with the list, and I discuss who is on the list and why they may be on the list right now. Good thing to observe and should be expected is that these lists have again gotten much bigger than last year, and they're going to continue to increase because SafeSport is getting more support and funding. We've discussed in previous videos that SafeSport was designed to fail based on the goals in viewing thousands of reports in several different governing bodies beyond gymnastics. They were given a short amount of time with low staffing and funds. Now that SafeSport has been established for well over 5 years, we should expect a growth in coaches and officials who are put on this list. So let's start with Summer 2025 USA Post Resolution. And before I forget, Maggie Haney has served her suspension term and was released in April of 2025. She can now coach for USAG affiliated club gyms with no repercussions. This is the same coach that is responsible for a child that hit her head and had a seizure in the foam pit and almost passed away because they didn't want to spot her on a skill. This could have been prevented. Maggie then laughed at the child when she was given a scholarship to a lesser successful college compared to a higher successful college like Oklahoma. That child still gets frequent headaches from what I was told. And this person can now coach anyone who's associated with a USA gym. Remember how I used to regularly ridicule her prior to the suspension? Yeah, I'm back to doing that again. Just wanted to make sure that this was discussed before we talk about the new list. Roger Walker was put on suspension for 29/25. What's interesting is that he's stating SafeSport violated his due process rights and filed a lawsuit against the center. He is to be taken off of the list May 2025, however, something is off with SafeSport. Although USAG removed him, SafeSport has yet to remove him as of June 2025 and has him listed under 2 different resolutions. Robin Netwell was placed immediately on suspended post-resolution 7/2/2025 and will be off the list 10/2/2025. She was associated with Parkettes and was featured in the documentary showing abusive tactics. California coach Ryan Carter was reported to USASF and Child Protective Services in late October after family said he had inappropriate contact with multiple female athletes. This includes slapping them on the butt and sending overfamiliar, non-sexual messages, according to documents obtained by USA Today. Law enforcement opened an investigation, and Carter has since been fired for messaging athletes and being placed on leave. Records provided by a former gym official showed. But he has not been publicly suspended by USASF. The organization has only suspended his membership internally, the document showed. Carter called the allegations very fabricated and untrue, and denied being fired or under investigation. Law enforcement did not respond to a request for comment on the status of its investigation. This was from a 2020 article that discussed sexual abuse in cheerleading. If you don't know what USASF is, it is an organization for cheer and dance. Anna Lee. She was placed on suspended post-resolution in the past few months, but it does not currently show online. I do have pictures showing that SafeSport and USAG had her posted, but she has now been removed. Her term was to end in October of this year. Yan Wu was Anna Lee's mother. She was one of many who currently coach at Legacy Elite, where several reports have been made of physical abuse and neglect of coaching staff. She was placed 1/8/25 and will be off the list 1/8/26. I couldn't find anything on Wilbur Wortman. He resides in Lakeland, Florida, and was placed on the list 11/7/24. I'm probably going to mess this last name up. I have no idea how to pronounce it. Sebastian Sgroppo was put on the list 5/23/25 to 5/23/27. He was the head coach for Aerial East Gymnastics in Manchesterville, Virginia. Pending Resolution 2024. Now let's move on to the pending resolution. Remember, these are ongoing cases that should take a short amount of time to determine a resolution. The oldest people placed on the list are still in 2019, as I was talking about last year. This includes John Holman, who's recently retired, and that's how long he has been on this list. So here is the new people I have. Stephen Maness was found not guilty of indecent liberties with a minor and sexual battery by a jury from charges filed in 2021. Claims stated that 4 girls under the age of 16 stated that he would touch butts, chest, and groin when spotting. Additionally, they were subject to tickling and being pulled over privately to sit on his lap. It was stated that even though found not guilty, he refuses to return coaching because his life will never be the same again. He resides in North Carolina. I'm not sure what Paul P.J. Miller did, but he resides in Windermere, Florida. I'm gonna mess these up, just bear with me. Couldn't find anything on Stephen Smith. He resides in Pensacola, Florida. Couldn't find anything on Holden Maudlin, who resides in Kimberling City, Missouri. He was placed on the list 1-3-25. Douglas Pershin works at Erie Gymnastics Center in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was placed on the list 1-24-25, and I'm not sure why. I found this on Metru McGowie, which says he faced 1 count of fondling and 3 counts of battery. Take this with a grain of salt because I couldn't find any other sources. He lives in Shannon, Mississippi, and was placed on the list 9-6-24. Eric Stinson Sr. is a coach currently at Northwest Gymnastics Training Center in Gresham, Oregon. I'm saying current since he's still on the staff's webpage. Now we're going to move on to a different category. I call this on USAG list but not SafeSport, and there's 2 reasons for this. One is because USAG was the national governing body that put them on suspension for whatever reason or some sort of restriction, which it's supposed to go to USAG first, and then it goes to SafeSport typically if it's a very serious case or if it's sexual abuse. So some of these are sexual abuse, but some of these are not. Or it's on the USAG list, but not on SafeSport because for some reason SafeSport does not have it on the list. That could be maybe without a term ended, maybe they forgot to keep the name in, maybe they removed it by accident, maybe they meant to remove it. We don't know. So, but here's the list. I could not find someone related to the spelling of Tyler Vandenberg. There is a coach under a different spelling, Vanderberg, with B-E-R-G and not B-U-R-G. But they're not the same person. He resides in California. He is placed by SafeSport, but only appears on USAG pending resolution. Hayden Singua was put on pending by USAG and not SafeSport, shockingly, since it was related to sexual misconduct. Between May 2018 and no later than January 2025, Singua is alleged to have received and possessed more than 14,000 images and videos depicting child sexual abuse in 2 Google accounts and multiple electronic devices. Hayden's collection depicted children as young as infants and toddlers being sexually abused, tortured, and engaging in sexual acts with animals. Hayden is alleged to have possessed computer-generated child pornography in addition to erotic visual depictions of minors. Hayden worked at Just Gymnastics in Rapid City until May 2024, when his employment was terminated. I couldn't find anything on Amy Reed, who resides in Georgia. She is on the pending resolution exclusively through USAG and not through SafeSport. Neil Griffiths may be an international gymnast who is also connected to California, Maryland, Nevada, and possibly British gymnastics. He was on Britain's Got Talent and was under investigation in 2020 for child endangerment. This supposedly was cleared, but back in a conversation in 2022 when an article discussed British gymnastics' wrongdoing of honoring justice and abuse for the organization. He was alleged to fat-shaming, weighing gymnasts, verbal abuse while he was coaching at Heathrow Gymnastics Club. On June 25, 2020, several people filed a complaint against Diva Gymnastics Academy and Travis Seafried, alleging negligence, neglect, supervision, bodily injury, mental anguish, and above others. Diva is owned and operated by Dr. Lisa Ford. The lawsuit became messy for several reasons, one being that at least one parent stated excessive training led to a child's injury. This same child had counteracting statements because they said the training did not lead them to injury. Furthermore, several children's over-exercising statements all varied, making it hard to formulate an opinion to the jury. In the end, Travis and Diva Gymnastics were not proven guilty. The jury found that the physical injuries they described were legitimate sports injuries and did not inherit to high-level gymnastics training, and were not caused by Diva Gymnastics or Travis Seafried. This trial occurred in 2022, and this is all I know about him. I couldn't find anything on Jamie Justin Ellis, who resides in Colorado and should be on SafeSport lists, but is only listed on USAG and SafeSport ruling. Talisha Stinson resides in Florida and is on the list from SafeSport according to USAG. Her name does not pop up on SafeSport database. She is or was associated with Edgewater Gymnastics Academy, but we don't know if her abuse was or could have been related to this club or even related to gymnastics. Now, on to the newbies on USAG's ban list that were added since fall of last year. David Rawls is the owner of Libertyville Gymnastics Academy in Libertyville, Illinois. That's all I know on him. I don't know if he still has ties there or not. Brandon Etheridge was placed on the ban list, but I don't know why. He resides in Alabama. Donald Spaulding is listed in Illinois, but he is also coached in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not sure why Dante Gallardo is on the list. He resides in Morgan Hill, California. 27-year-old Kyle Anthony Picula was accused of grooming the victim, who is now an adult, stating that he was 11 or 12 years old. Charging documents allege that Picula began with sexually suggestive comments to the child and escalated to sexually assaulting the victim over the course of several years. Picula faces charges of first-degree criminal sexual consent with a person under 13, second-degree criminal sexual content with a 13 to 15-year-old victim while in a position of authority, and soliciting a child for sex using electronic communication. At least 2 other criminal cases are pending against Picula, who was fired from John Hopp Gymnastics Studio after he was arrested for allegedly exposing his genitals to children and inviting them to attend his classes. In another case, Picula is accused of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy several times in 2017. Nadia Osbaneku is the owner of Extreme Heights Gymnastics in Richmond, Virginia. I'm not sure what happened. There is a Pablo Capote who is an international gymnast. I'm not sure what he has done or if it's even the same guy. They have him listed in Dickinson, Texas. Jacob Brennan, 40, the owner of Blitz MMA, was arrested and booked into the Clannon County Jail on May 19th after a woman came forward and told investigators that Brennan touched her inappropriately when he was her coach between 2013 and 2015. The victim was 13 years old at the time of the sexual abuse, investigators wrote in the document, adding Brennan was 30 at the time. The victim claimed that Brennan kissed her hundreds of times and touched her vagina above and below her clothes hundreds of times between 2013 and 2015. There is a public lawsuit documented that discusses several abusers, including Troy Wright. It states that he molested and was also charged for battery, though I didn't read more into it. He resides in Alabama. What's really creepy is that I found a website and it discusses all of his accolades. If you see in the comment section, there are two sexual predators that both discuss their respect for Troy. It's very creepy because one of them is John Geddert. I tried to put a trigger warning in earlier because I know this is still very hard for some people to digest, especially since, although it was a couple years ago, it's still pretty recent. I guess a couple, I'm meaning more than two. But this is exactly how it goes, that these horrible predators all are friends, and there's just no way to stop them if we don't know what's going on. Matthew Shriver was a co-owner for one of the Everest gymnastic locations in South Jersey. Months after Shriver was put on the ban list, another coach from Everest Gymnastic was put on the list. This was Chi Han. This marks two men on the ban list that were both tied to Everest Gymnastics chains. There are two locations that are still running, and neither of these men were coaching these. Jennifer Hallock. I could not find anything, but she resides in Texas. She was moved from pending to ban list this year. Richard and Russell Mast were placed on the ban list for physical and sexual misconduct. I was actually working on a project over the two brothers who own a gym in Kansas for decades. Charges of physical abuse was given to Russell in the 1990s, and a sexual abuse lawsuit to Richard that was found not guilty by a jury in the 2000s. As a result, they rebranded until COVID shut them down. They tried to open a smaller gym, but they failed shortly after. Dan Brewing was an owner of a gym in Wichita, Kansas. Either shortly before or after being placed on the pending resolution list, he announced his retirement. His wife and himself sold the gym to somebody else. We never found out what crimes he committed. What was unique with him is that he is also tied to USA Triathlon National Organization and USAG. It's not often that I see somebody registered under two different organizations. John Holman worked at Parkettes for several years. I've discussed that he has had sexual abuse claims and was placed on the list in 2019 with no justice until this year. It should also be noted that he stated his retirement before being banned. Chi Han was placed on the ban list just recently this year. He was one of the first videos I made who sorted girls into a fat group to train more hours. There is no claims of sexual abuse, so it's interesting to note that this is the first man to make the list who didn't sexually assault girls besides Steve Penny. Chris Garces was in a lawsuit in 2021 that finally settled in February 2025. I'm not sure what he did, but he was associated with Affinity Gymnastics. Tanaya Ty Coulson, 24, was charged with sexual battery involving a victim under the age of 12 and lewd and lascivious molestation. Coulson engaged in inappropriate and unlawful relationship with a minor over an extended period. Austin Hall, a co-owner of Intempora Gymnastics, was accused of sexually assaulting a 17-year-old employee at the gym and harassing several others, records show. The lawsuit states Hull co-owns the business with his father from 2019 to 2022. He sexually harassed 4 female employees. It further alleges that 2 of those victims were minors, one of whom was sexually assaulted in addition to the harassment. Paul Hingle. I couldn't find anything new, but he did admit to sexually assaulting a 16-year-old in 2005. This abuse happened in Texas, and he is listed under California and Texas. This can list 2 states if abuse occurred in one state or more, and the person resides in another state. This isn't as common, but it has happened in the past. He moved from pending to ban list this year. Terry Lampa was an owner at Spirit Gymnastics and Cheerleading. I don't know what he did, but he's on the ban list now. Now that we've talked about USA's list, let's compare and contrast USA to SafeSport. SafeSport has had more people not on the list when USAG says their governing body put them on the list. I had a couple last year which included Paul Hingle. Paul Hingle has been placed on SafeSport, but this year I am missing more people than last year. These people include Hayden Single, Tyler Vandenberg, and James Justin Ellis. Shockingly, USAG is up to date on all people, besides rumors like Al Fong and other famous people not showing on allegations on a database. One thing they could fix, though, is adding when people are put on a pending resolution, since SafeSport does, and this is the only thing that USAG doesn't provide dates for. And of course, that USAG has left several coaches blank when providing what they were violated for. We can clearly find out what the violation was from SafeSport, so why is this category still blank? An issue, though, that both SafeSport and USAG has is that Anna Lee is no longer on either list. So we aren't sure if she somehow had her suspension removed quietly or that there is something ongoing. I'm hoping it's the second answer. But we can infer that since she is popular for USAG, that they may be protecting her, like how Valeri Liukin and some Parkettes coaches are under investigation but are being protected by not being on the online databases. And while we discuss Anna Lee, let's discuss the justice of how long someone should be punished. There are several people who are finally getting some sort of reprimand, but people like Robin are only given 1 year, and others like Anna Lee have had way more allegation, yet is serving less than a year. How do allegations of abuse determine how long someone should be punished? One good thing is that we've had a big increase in cases reported to both SafeSport and USAG. There was 22 people added onto the ban list this year, which is huge when compared to last year. There was also quicker resolution for some people who were placed on a pending resolution, and others were immediately placed on the ban list, completely bypassing the pending resolution list. This is the first year that I've had this happen. There was a total of 5 people who were reported to USAG and were placed on the pending list. One of the 5 cases was sexual abuse that USAG was handling instead of SafeSport. This is very rare that we've seen this happen. It has happened, but it's very, very rare. And the last one I can remember was a very long time ago, I think 2000s. But the organizations still have improvements to work on. Several of the people who were placed on the ban list had been long retired, like John Holman, Daniel Brewing, and the Mass Brothers. All of those men did not take being placed on the list as a punishment, nor did they suffer any ramifications. They ended ties with the sport themselves, which gives no justice to the children that they harmed. USAG and SafeSport is getting a little better each year, but there's still several mistakes that are easily found if you search the databases. They are doing better with tracking down people, but it still isn't enough, and they need to do a better job of updating things on these lists. Because SafeSport seems to have gotten worse this year than the year before. USAG has gotten better at looking into their own national governing body SafeSport, but they are still lacking all the info for the people they report on.